So in this video we're going to look at plants, and we're also going to look at reverse plants. Now reverse plants are the shots that I think some people find a little bit tricky and they don't quite understand exactly how to play those shots. So I think it's easier to explain though if we have a look at some normal examples of just some normal basic plants first, and then we'll move on to the reverse plants and I'll explain exactly how we go about playing those shots. Now in this first example here, I'm not able to pot a red directly because this one red is in front of the other red. So I'm going to need to play a plant. Now the shot that I've set up, this is quite a basic plant here. So I know there's a little bit of distance between the two balls, but actually both of these two reds are in a perfect line to the pocket. So there's not much to judge. So when we normally go about lining up a plant like this, if we look from behind the shot, what you're trying to judge is you're trying to judge exactly where you need to hit this first red here into the second red so that it hits it at the correct point and it goes into the pocket. So as I say, with this shot, because the balls are in a perfect line to the pocket anyway, you haven't really got to judge much. As long as you hit that first red at the correct point to pot it into the corner, it should contact the second one and you should get the pot. So let's have a look at playing this shot and a couple of tips for when you're playing these plants then. Right, so we're ready to play the shot now, and as we've already seen, these two balls are in a perfect line to the corner pocket. So I know that as long as I hit this first red at the correct contact point to pot it into the corner, it should hit the second red at the correct point, and that second red should go into the pocket. And that brings us on to our first tip here when playing plants, and that is to decide exactly what you're doing with the white ball. So I think it's very common for players with these shots to put all of their concentration and focus into exactly what they're doing with those two reds. So deciding where the one red needs to hit the other one, and they completely forget to play any position with the cue ball at all. So what we're going to do today is, I know that I've got to hit this red as if I was going to pot it, and that should make the other one go in, and then I'm going to play a little stun shot. So I'm going to leave the white just in front of this first red, and that'll leave me a nice shot onto the black into the opposite corner. So get down on the shot, make sure that you're comfortable, that you're on the right line, play the shot. And there we go, we've got the plant. We decided what we were doing with the white ball, and I've got a perfect shot on the black now to just bounce on and off the cushion, and then I'll get position on this second red then as well. And now in this second example here, before we get on to the reverse plants, you can see that we've got two reds that are a similar distance apart, but this time they're not set in a dead straight line to pot into this corner pocket. So if I hit this first red and I hit that red as if I was trying to pot it into the corner, it wouldn't make the correct contact on the second red, and the second red would hit the side cushion. So we need to, in this situation, try and pick out the point on this first red that we need to hit so that it makes the correct contact with the second red and it goes into the pocket. So I'm going to give you a couple of ways of aiming and a couple of little tips here that's hopefully going to improve your success when you're trying to judge these angles with plants. So what you'll see players generally that they'll tend to do is they'll get down to this first red here and they'll aim up that red as if they're using the first red as the white ball, and they'll look where they need to aim so that that second red goes into the pocket. And what they'll do is they'll look where the tip of their cue is pointing at that first red, and they'll try and keep that point in their mind. So they'll try and keep that nice and clear, and then you step away from the shot and you try and walk into the shot keeping that point in mind and hit the white onto that point that you've just picked out on that first red. That's one way of doing it. The other way to do it is exactly the same. You use the first red as the white ball, so you're picking out your angle there, but then you can, instead of keeping your vision looking at where the tip is on that first red, you can look, if you poke that red now into the cushion, you can pick a point on this cushion where that red would go. So if I look at the potting angle there and I think I'm happy with that, that red's going to hit about there on the cushion. And then what I can do is I can step away from the shot and I can play to hit this red into that point on the cushion, and then hopefully if I do that, the second red will go into the pocket. And again, just finally on this, again, very important that you pick a position that you want the cue ball to go into. So again, don't, just because the plant is a little bit tricky to pick out, completely forget about the white and just roll it in and leave the white tight on the cushion. Think about where the white's going to go when you judge this plant. So I know I've got to hit this first red a little bit full, and if I play a little bit of a run through shot, I should just leave myself somewhere where I'm pointing here now for the black into the opposite corner. So I'm just going to have a look at this plant again. Something like that there. And then I can walk into the shot little roll through. And I didn't lose the white there, and I've left myself a nice shot onto the black into the opposite corner. And finally now, this brings us on to reverse plants, and these only crop up when the two balls that you're planting are either touching or they're very, very close together. And when I say close together, I mean literally that there's about a 1mm or a 2mm gap in between the two balls. Any more than that, and then it just turns back into a normal plant again. So let's have a look at this reverse plant here. You can see that these two reds here are not set in a direct line for this corner pocket. If I was to hit that first red full in the face, the second red would miss the pocket and it would hit the far jaw, it would hit the side cushion. So if we were to aim this plant then, as we just did in the second example, so if I was to come round and say, well, I need the second red to go a little bit thinner. So I'd come round here and I'd be aiming on this first red to hit the second red and make it go a bit thinner into the pocket. So that means I'd need to hit this first red on the left-hand side. Well, if I was to do that, you would get what we call a squeeze effect, and I would actually push it even further towards the side cushion and it would miss the pocket by even more. So if we show that as a first example here, if I get down into this shot and I hit the first one on the left to try and squeeze it into the pocket, you can see there it's gone even worse. It was only just hitting the side cushion, but because I hit it on the left-hand side and because the balls were touching each other, it becomes a reverse plant. And by hitting it on the left, I made the squeeze effect and I made it even worse and I missed it by even more distance. So I've just quickly set this shot up again, and you can see that I've set it up so that this second red is missing the pocket again and it's going to hit this side cushion. So what we have to do here, and why these are called reverse plants, is you have to hit the first red on the opposite side to you would actually expect. So intuitively you would think, okay, I'll hit this red on the left-hand side and that'll send the second one a little bit thinner. But actually it works the opposite way round, and that's why we call them reverse plants. So if you're normally thinking here, well, I'll hit it on the left to make it go a bit thinner, you have to play it as a reverse plant and hit it on the right-hand side. So if I hit this red on the right-hand side now, the first red, it'll cause a squeeze effect on that second red and it should hopefully throw it a little bit thinner and it'll throw it into the pocket. So let's have a look at that. And you can see that time that even though it didn't look like that would happen, I had the reverse effect than you would expect, and it's made the ball go perfectly into the corner pocket. So there we go. I hope you enjoyed this video. We've got a couple of tips there for aiming plants. So when the balls are not dead set for a pot into the corner pocket, we've got a couple of tips for how you go about aiming the one ball onto the other ball so that you can pick out little reference points and hopefully make your success rate picking out the angles a little bit better. And then obviously we've got the reverse plants, which only crop up, of course, when the two balls are either absolutely touching or there's just a very, very small gap between the two balls, about a 1mm or a 2mm gap. So if you did find this video useful, then please give the video a like, and if you want to see more instructional tutorials just like this one, please subscribe to the channel. Thanks for watching. Cheers.